Bootstrap is a design framework. What does that mean? Um, a design framework is basically we're going to be using other people's styles to design our website. And I know that you might say to yourself, what if I want to use my own styles? Well, we can also take their components and style them for ourselves. So we need to create a new project, right? And we need to frame out a regular HTML project. So let me split up my screen and we'll start building out a new project. All right. One second. I want to see if I can split up my screen in a little bit better way. So we're gonna all open up. Well, first, let me just. All right. So I'm gonna open up the my file directory, just where I keep my files. I'm going to go to the place where we keep all of our coding club files. Remember, we created it last week. And I'm going to create a new folder, right? Every time we build a new project, we make a new folder, all right? This way, all our project files are in one place and we know where to look. Okay. So I'm going to create a new folder. I don't want to name a new folder, so I'm going to name it pumpkin sure project. Cool. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to open up this in Visual Studio Code. So let's open up Visual Studio Code. Don't worry about any of this. And we're going to say open folder, find the folder that we just created, and open up Pumpkin project. Okay, and like all our other projects, we need a index.html, right? Because that's the root of our project. Right. Just gonna put this next to my other screen. Okay. So, like I said, Bootstrap is the we're basically using other people's code to build our projects. And I know that probably sounds confusing. And I'm going to give you a couple examples, right? So this is the Bootstrap documentation. I put it inside the Discord, but I'm going to put it inside the chat right now. Did everybody get that? Let me know when you have it opened up. You can have it open and you can close, not close Zoom, but minimize Zoom. And let's just look at this this documentation together. Let me know when you got it, all right? All right. Is everybody on the introduction page of the Bootstrap? Cool. Cool. All right. So we see that we say we have this page named Introduction. Getting started with Bootstrap, the world's most popular framework for building responsive mobile first sites with Bootstrap, CDN, and template starter page. Okay. What this basically means is that, like I said, we're going to use code from another place to provide styles for us. When we are writing our usual HTML, right, we have a place for our styles. They go here. You usually write styles or style.css, and this would link to a style sheet that we created ourselves. Okay. Now, the people at Twitter who created Bootstrap have written their own style sheet that we can use. And we're going to access that by copying this link. And instead of using our usual link with our style sheet, we're going to paste in their link with their style sheet. This will give us access to all of their styles and make it a lot easier for us to design websites without having to worry about necessarily building everything from scratch. I know sometimes, especially on Saturday, probably, you saw me styling very quickly and coding very quickly, and you probably thought to yourself, there's just too much to build in one session. It's too much to understand. I understand that. There are a lot of things you have to learn, and there's a lot of things you don't have to learn. And I would say CSS is very important for basic styling, but to be a pro at CSS, I mean, for me personally, it's what you enjoy. If you enjoy design and you like, matching colors and designing, flyers or any type of artwork, then styling is probably really for you. But I like function of websites. So I try not to get too caught up on the design. For many reasons, though. It's usually because most people don't really appreciate website design as much as you do. If you work very hard on a project, you want people to appreciate it, but most people just see it as another website. So I try to not be as simple as possible, but be as pragmatic as possible. So the next step in adding Bootstrap to our project is copying out the JavaScript. And I know you're probably saying to yourself, we don't know JavaScript. But that's the thing. It's the great thing. We don't need to know JavaScript. They wrote JavaScript for us to use. All right. So all I have to do is copy that and paste it in the section at the bottom of our body. That's where our scripts will go. Okay. Well, let's actually start from scratch, Ryan. I'm gonna delete all this, and I'm just gonna scroll down a little bit, and we see they have something called a starter template. Let's copy that starter template and just paste it, and it's ready to go automatically. And we can see exactly where they need to go. The scripts go in the bottom of the body, and the link goes in the head tag. Yeah, and that's the great thing about documentation, especially Bootstrap documentation. Okay, no problem, Ryan. Ryan, just delete everything. Go down to the starter template and get bootstrap.com and copy the starter template and paste it into your index.html file. And that will be a starter template for us to use. It's cool. It's already made. And I don't know if anybody has caveats or has a problem with copying code, but programming is definitely half copying code. You shouldn't copy code you don't understand, but you should definitely utilize other people's code when you are in a pinch. There's no point to rewrite this stuff if it's already provided for you. Always use the resources that are given to you. So everybody on the same page to me, we all have the template in our index.html file. Cool. I'm just gonna open up my GitHub real quick. Because I pre-built the project and I want to just follow it along. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just looking for a project. Great. Okay. So everybody's on the same page. We can delete the hello world in our body. We don't really need it. We understand what it does. Is an H1. It's going to say hello world. So I'm going to delete that so we have a clean, fresh template for us to use, right? So let's go over what we are using right now. And this way we can understand why it's important to us, right? So this page on the left that I have is the Bootstrap documentation. It's basically, these are instructions for using Bootstrap. I want to utilize the pre-made components that are made by Bootstrap. And what do you're probably asking yourself, what do you mean by pre-made components? These are pre-made objects that we can use in our code. Let me go to a better example. They have forms for us to use. They have nav bars for us to use. They have carousels for us to use, which are carousels are basically sliders that you see. You see moving images in a website. There are a bunch of pre-made objects that we can use very easily because of Bootstrap. All right. Does everybody get that? Cool. Okay. So let's see one of these projects in Word, right? So let's steal. I think I'm going to steal. Let's steal this nav. So if we go into components, we click on nav bar, and then we scroll down to the first example. It will be this nav bar with this drop down, very cool. And we can just steal this real quick, right? Right, and let's open Live Server. And now we have this nav bar. But the real cool thing about this nav bar is that when we go to a smaller screen, it turns into a mobile nav bar, right? With all these options. Okay. And this is really helpful when we're building websites. So we don't have to build these things from scratch, right? But we should know what some of these things do, right? So I'm going to delete all this stuff. I'm going to go over it piece by piece, right? So I'm just have my code up. So we're going to use the tag nav for our nav bar, right? And we're going to give it a class of nav bar. This is a class that is designated by Bootstrap to signify that we're using a nav bar. It gives us a container that is the full width of the screen, a row like we used before, and it is a row that is flexible for adding new items, right? So inside of this row, I'm going to add another div, right? And I'm going to give it a class of container fluid. Now, let's go to the Bootstrap documentation. Let's go to layout, and let's go to overview. So here we see that containers are the most basic layout element in Bootstrap. They're required when you're using the default grid system. So remember last week or 2 weeks before that, I think we actually started. No, last week. I'm sorry. Last week we described a grid system. It was rows and columns. Correct? Does everybody remember that? Cool. So in Bootstrap, we have the same access to rows and columns, but they're pre-built into our classes. We don't have to write display row. We can just write row. It's a class that Bootstrap has already made. Is everybody getting that? What Bootstrap gives us is the ability just to add pre-made classes to our code, and it will automatically style our code for us based on Bootstrap's styles. All right. So back to our little project. So inside of our navbar or nav tag, we're going to add a div class with a container fluid. What this means is that we're adding a div that takes up the whole space of the screen. When we have a container fluid, what we're saying is that the whole space is to be taken up by this div. All right, we're basically saying display flex direction row, right? All right, so inside of this nav fluid, I'm going to add an A tag. Right? An A tag is a link. Everybody should know that. And our href is pointing to nowhere, but we can point it to wherever we want. You know, we can point it to, you know, joshuaamordino.com. We can point it to google.com. It doesn't really matter, but for right now, I'm going to point it to hashtag because it doesn't matter where it goes. All right. So when we render this, we should have Joshua Pumpkins, which is the text inside of the A tag. Does everybody get that? Cool. Now, what's important when dealing with, I'm going to open up nav in a separate tag so we can go back and forth. So what's really important about Bootstrap is that it comes with pre-made classes that we can use for different things, right? Most importantly, we can style background, right? So let's say I want my background to be dark, and it creates a dark background. I can say background light, and my background be light. All of these utility functions would be found in the utility tab in the documentation, right? Okay. So what we've learned so far is that Bootstrap provides us with pre-made classes with pre-made components for us to style our applications more quickly and more effectively. Does everybody get that? You don't have to really be focused on what we're learning right now. What's really important is that we get that Bootstrap provides us with classes that we can use, and all we have to do to find out what we want is to go through the documentation, find an example, find the code that we need, and then copy what we need. Does everybody get that? Cool. All right. So I'm gonna change my background back to BG dark because I like it dark and my eyes are hurting. And I want to add, what about we take a vote? What should we add to, let's look through our components and let's see what we should add to our website, right? So we have all these components, and these all are kind of using weird names, right? But what's really important is that we just look through them and see what we need. So we have a badge class, we have a breadcrumb class, we have a button class, we have cards. These are interesting. These kind of remind me of kind of like Tinder almost, like the swiping little things. We have carousels, which I went over before, which are really cool. We can move through carousels like this. We have tabs. Drop downs, more nav bar, puffers, a bunch of cool stuff we can use. Does anybody have any ideas of what they want to use? Look through the components real quick and tell me what looks cool to you, and we'll build one of those components out from scratch. If not, no problem. I can also show what I was going to teach anyways. Okay, no ideas? No problem. So let's build a carousel. Like I said, a carousel are these sliders. You see them very commonly on a lot of websites. Very basic web design. Everybody wants a slider for some reason. It's very common. You're going to have to build one. And Bootstrap very graciously has given us this code. So let's see what we need. First of all, if we go back to layout, we understand that in order to use the grid system, we need to provide a class of container, right? So first, we're going to make a div with a class of container fluid, right? Remember what I said? That will be the whole width of the screen. Next, let's look at the format of this carousel that they provided to us. So we have a div with a class of carousel slide and a data ride of carousel. So let's create another div within our container fluid, and let's give it a class of carousel. And slide and give it a data ride. Data ride of carousel. Cool. So now we have like the base component of our carousel. This shows anything, but nothing's showing up because we don't have anything inside of there. It doesn't have any images or it doesn't have anything to slide through, just an empty space. So we're gonna have to give it items to slide through. So we create another div. Sorry about that. Sorry. Yeah, a div. Stop snoring.
What happened?
My dog was snoring. We're going to create another div with a class of carousel inner. That's right, we spell carousel dash inner. Right? All right. This creates the inner part of the carousel, the part that will render the images. And now we have to provide the images for it to render. So we create another div with the class of carousel dash item dot active, which will state that this carousel item is active. And then we'll place an image within our item. Sorry about that. Let me just turn this into. This is one tag. I just made it like that so you can see it more easily. It has a class of D, which is display block, and a W, which is a width of 100. Did everybody get that? These tags, these classes that they've given you are pretty easy to get along to understand, as long as you just kind of think pragmatically. It's not that hard. I wouldn't say to memorize all of them. I would say know how to find what you're looking for, more importantly. All right. So this has a source that we're not going to be able to find, so I'm going to provide an image for this. So I'm going to find an image online, and we will paste it in there. I'm going to go to pexels.com, which is a free image website, free field to use this whenever you are building projects for anybody. It's royalty free. I want to use a horizontal image. Okay. I'm just going to compress this down using Bitly. You don't have to worry about these steps. I just don't want to use that long I don't want to use that long URL. So this all this does is shortens the URL for me. And I'm gonna place this here. Okay. That's not what I wanted. And now we will look at our open up live server, and now we have this single image sitting here, right? Not exactly what we wanted, but we're getting there, you know? So what we can do for right now is we can copy and paste the carousel item multiple times because we're making multiple items. And all we need to do is delete this class of active because only one is active at a time. All right. let's find one more image just so that we can tell when this thing is switching. Is it pumpkins again? No, just gonna steal this image and I'm gonna paste it in here. I don't want to waste anybody's time. Okay. So now we have 3 images that are all moving by themselves. I understand I might have went fast, but the real important thing is that I could have copied and pasted this whole entire code from Bootstrap and just placed in my images right here. I used the exact same template they used. I used the exact same classes they used. What's really important are the classes and the structure. Everything else is for you to design by yourself. All right? Does everybody get that? Is everybody in the same pace as me? I feel like sometimes I'm talking to myself, and I know this might be a little bit confusing, but really just see this as objects you can borrow. If anybody plays, I don't know, does anybody play Fortnite? There are, that's probably a better example. These are just pre-made components that we can utilize. And when you were designing our projects, okay, no problem. Ryan, did you put in an image in the source? Remember when I found my image on pexels.com? I will send you an image right now. And is it a valid image? Is the question. Make sure that the quotation marks wrap the image source tag. On Bitly, yes, I will send the Bitly URL shortener. Cool. That's Bitly right there. Any URL you want to shorten, all you gotta do is place it within this little input right here. Let's say google.com. Press shorten. No, I'm sorry, I use this a bunch. And it will make a free link to that URL for you. I think your limit is like 5 a day. I was using it last night to build a project. Ryan, did you solve your problem? Okay. Is your carousel working properly? Is it sliding through images like this one? Ridiculous. Cool. Let's learn about some utility classes. And what I mean by utility classes are being able to what was that? Okay. Being able to style our code according to the way that we want, right? So we have in CSS, we have things called padding and style, padding and margin. Do we remember that, guys? Cool. Cool. I'm gonna add a button down here so we can see this properly. I'm just gonna steal a button from them. So I just stole a button from Bootstrap, and now we have a button right here, right? Now, do you remember what margin is, right? Margin is the space between that item and other items, all right? So in order to add margin in Bootstrap, all I have to say is M, which stands for margin, and then dash, and then a number 1 through 5, right? And that will give us margin on all sides of that image, of that that component, all right? If we only want margin on the top, we write MT-5, and that only gives us margin on the top. We only want margin on the left, ML, and that will give us margin on the left. Margin on the bottom, MB, which won't show up because there's nothing on the bottom, and MR, margin on the right. There's nothing on the right. So I'm gonna give this an M of 5, all right? There's also padding, right? We want to add padding. We're gonna add a P, and then I'm gonna do P5 so that it will clearly show up. And the padding, which is the space inside of the object, will be added. It also works the same way. We have padding top, padding left, padding bottom, padding right. Does everybody get that? Pretty simple stuff, right? Cool. Okay. So I want to add a little bit of padding to the top of this. You see how this slider touches our nav bar? I don't really like the way that looks. So I'm going to go to my container fluid, and I'm going to add an MT of 5 because I like it better like that. And it looks a little bit cleaner, right? How did you get that to slide? Okay, Ryan. Did you add different images to the so try to add different images first. Next, make sure only one of the classes has an active, right? That's also very important. If all of them are active, then none of them can be switched, right? And the most important part is following the format that Bootstrap gives us. So if we go back down to components, we go back into carousels, slides only. All you gotta do is copy and paste, and then change the source, right? And also, if you want to add little utility classes to this class to style it the way you want, add it like that, all right? Is everybody getting that so far? It's pexels.com. Pexels.com. No problem. Okay, so we're all on the same page, right? Like, we understand that Bootstrap is basically like a cheat code for coding on the front end. Like, we don't have to build all of these things from scratch because it doesn't make any sense. Like, would anybody know the difference if I built this nav bar from scratch or I borrowed theirs? No. But I understand if you want to make things custom and you want to be different, totally makes sense. We can still add our own style sheet underneath. All you have to do is add a link with a row of style sheet and an href of style.css, right? And then, see, that's a close attack or not. I do not remember. Yep. And then we would add a style.css. All right. As long as your styles are underneath this style sheet, then your styles will be rendered, right? Now it's important that if you're styling something that's unique, like let's say this nav, we use an ID, right, of something unique, nav bar. All right. Then I can go into my nav. And I can say background color. Did I spell it correctly? Style. Style. Yes. And our custom colors will be rendered as long as they're in a separate style sheet. Now, I want to style the body of this different room. I don't like the white background, right? So I'm gonna specify a background color, and that's kind of very much in the face. Cool. Now we have a custom background color. And what's really important about Bootstrap, more than anything else that you're learning, is that it auto sizes for different components. So you can all you have to do is build one time, and now you have a regular and a mobile component. So this is an iPhone 6, 7, and 8. This is an iPhone X, iPad Pro, Pixel. It all works. And all you have to do is write one code base. You might learn when, if you guys ever work in the future, if you're writing code, it has to work on everything. And the ability to write one line of code and it to work everywhere is really a blessing, right? So is everybody at this point right now where they have a nav bar and a slider? Okay, no problem. Well, I want to wait for everybody. So while you're doing that, I'm going to go over more of these utility classes that Bootstrap provides us, right? So if we go into utilities, we have a bunch of buttons that we click on. Clear, fix, close icon, color, display, embedded, flex, float, image replacement, position, screen readers, shadow, sizing, spacing, text, vertical line, visibility. I want to look at colors. That's what I want to look at. I'm sorry. This is not what I want to look at. I want to look at themes. Okay. So, Bootstrap provides us with a bunch of themes that we can use right out of the box. All we have to do is state if we're using dark, all I have to say is dark. Or if we're using light, all I have to say is you're using light. If you look at my navbar component, I have a BG of a class of BG dark, which states that the background will be dark. These are really convenient when we're styling up different components. This way, colors are the same throughout their whole entire project. What's really important here is it's just really looking through this documentation for things that you need. You have to understand we're building this project only so that you can look through the documentation and find what you need and build the projects you want to build. Me instructing you how to build a slider is helpful, but at the same time, it's not, because you should learn how to build the projects that you want to build. And that's why I really try to emphasize on building your own projects. One second, my dog is snoring. I have to prop up her head. I'll be right back.
She's too loud.
Okay. All right. Okay. Samantha and Ryan, do you want to share your screen maybe, and maybe we can work through your project together? Okay, cool. I'm gonna stop sharing. Ryan, feel free to share your screen whenever you want. Cool. Okay. This is very interesting. Joshua's pumpkins. Okay. So can you just make both full screen and then we'll switch back and forth? Thank you. Okay. So, container fluid, carousel slide, data ride, slide, carousel, cool. I have a carousel inner, and then you have the carousel items, cool. So your first problem, you have two divs with the carousel item active class. Only one of those should have an active class, remember? Because when the carousel item is active, it's showing. When it's not showing, when it's yep. And then the second mistake is that we're missing a class item, a carousel item on the second class. So now let's think about each one of these carousel items as an item with the image inside of it. So all of them have to be semi-identical except the active class. So yep, carousel item. Okay. Let's go back to your code. Cool. If they're different images, it will slide. Sometimes it just takes a second. So let's go back to your
the live
well,
server.
No, you don't. You don't. Just go back there. just sometimes maybe when your mouse is over the, I think that is what happens when your mouse is over the image, it won't slide. So we can just sit here for a second. I know it's, there you go, boom, see? Cool. And Samantha got the carousel working. Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna go back sharing my screen. Screen 2. Okay. Okay. So we remember last week when we created rows. The Bootstrap also utilizes the same styling technique. So remember when we want to create rows and columns inside of Bootstrap, we have to create a container. And if we want the container to be the total width of the screen, we're going to give it a class of container fluid, right? So let me just check my code real quick, make sure I'm doing it right. Yeah, okay. So inside of that container, we'll make a row. And the way we make a row in Bootstrap is that we give a class of type row. And inside of this row, I want to put some cards, right? I want to put something to click on. We'll make it look a little more professional. And I think I just have to find the cards within Bootstrap. I like this card. I'm going to copy this card. I'm going to copy this card. I'm going to go into my row. And I'm going to paste this card. Before I paste a couple, I just want to see what it looks like. It seems like it's missing the image. So I'm going to borrow an image from up here. And I'm going to paste it in my source. And we'll go through what we'll go through the card component and we'll look at it real quick, right? So the card component is a div, which is just a container with a class of card and a style of a width of 18 rem, which is just a width, right? Inside of that container, we have an image, which with a class of card image top, and a source, which remember is just like the actual image itself. Okay. And then a div underneath it to contain the text within the card, all right? Like I said, you don't have to memorize these classes. There's no point to put this information, to memorize this information. It's on the documentation. It's always going to be on the documentation. Whenever you have problems and whenever you're building something, just go look at the documentation and play around with it, right? So now we have this class. Now we have this card. And I want a couple cards just to demonstrate the fact that we are in a row, right? So I'm going to format this a little bit better so that we can see that this is separate. Okay. And now I'm going to copy and paste a couple of these. So now we have 4. And now we have 4 cards. And remember, when we're in a row, wherever we place below it will come next to it horizontally. And when we're in a column, we go vertically, right? Just like a row in the CSS, regular CSS, we can also add spacing options in here. So we can say justify content center. Cool. Now we have everything directly in the center. Do we want it that close together? Sure. And we also have classes like, remember, margin top. So we say give it a margin top of 5. Now we evenly space this away from our last item and here. But this kind of looks kind of ugly, you know? So let's also give these classes, these cards, I'm sorry, cards a margin of 2. Cool, I like that better. So I'm just gonna give each one of these cards a margin of 2, which will evenly space them out. Ooh, what did I do there? No, my bad. Cool. And like I said, the cool thing about this is that it auto adjusts depending on your screen size. So you build it once, and this is already ready for the mobile web. I know it kind of went a little fast. Is everybody on the same pace as me? No problem. I'll wait for you. Yeah, no problem. So just like regular CSS, we have access to rows. When we place items inside of a row, we place things horizontally. When we place things in a column, we're placing things vertically. In Bootstrap specifically, each row can contain 12 columns, all right? And we can specify the size of a column by annotating it with a dash and the size with a number from 1 to 12, right? I'm actually going to demonstrate that next by placing another column, placing a row and a column inside of the container that we built before, right? So inside of the div that's named container fluid, underneath the row that we just built, I'm going to create another div called, with a class of row, right? Inside of this, so this row, let's see if I can, inside this row, I'm going to place a column. And the way we create a column is giving a class of column. Now, I'm just going to put some text in there so we can see it. Okay. Dark text is never a good idea. There we go. Hello is right there. But the real important thing to see is that this column takes up the whole entire space. I understand that the table tag was probably very heavily taught in beginning HTML classes, but the table tag I only really used to render tables. Divs are really a more generic class that we can tag, that we can style in any way that we want. So I try to stay away from using tables and only use divs. All right. It's a little more free, and we can do different things with our divs that we can't do with our tables, right? So we noticed that when I added a class of row, class of column inside of our class of row, that the class of column takes up the whole space. It takes up 12 columns because it's responsive. It doesn't know, it knows that nothing else is in that row, so it knows it can take up as much space as possible. So if I put another class of column inside of my class of row, it knows that another class is there, and it shares with it very nicely. So each plain column class without an annotation to it will take up as much space as it can. The only time where it will be set to a specific size is if you annotate it with a dash and then a number from 1 to 12. So I'm gonna say a -2. All right. And now we see that this column only takes up this small amount right here, 2 columns width. And this class of column, regular column with no -2, takes up the rest of the space. Does everybody get that? So that's really helpful when you're trying to build websites that will need to scale from a huge monitor to a regular sized phone, you know? We can also annotate this column class, or actually all classes in Bootstrap, even further. We can add something called breakpoints. So if you were with me on Saturday, I went over writing different code, different CSS for different size phones. It's called a media query. And in Bootstrap, we don't need to write different CSS for different phones or different sizes, right? We automatically have access to that with something called breakpoints, responsive breakpoints. See, let's find a table. Oh, I'm sorry about this, guys. There's a table to show. Okay. So extra small is underneath the 576 pixels. Small is greater than but equal to 576 pixels. Medium is greater than or equal to 768 pixels. Larger is so on and so on and so on. So the way we annotate our columns by adding the SM, the MD, the LG, or the XL. This states that when we are in that range of pixels in on our screen, we will render these styles, right? So let's say that I want this to be a column 2, but only when I am greater than small, right? And when I am not, it'll be a column. So we're gonna come back to here. I'm gonna just change the color of these real quick so that we can see them better. Just disregard this color. And I'm gonna change it to white. Hopefully that'll help us see it. Cool. You know what I'm gonna do instead? This is kind of dumb. I should just give this a border. The border of 1 pixel solid. Cool. I'm just gonna copy this so that we can easily see what I'm talking about without me having to highlight it. Cool. So now we easily see that this is taking up 12, taking up 8, and this is taking up 2, right? But when I come down to a small phone, this is no longer taking up 2 because we have annotated that when we are under small, this no longer matters. Anything above small, then this will only take up 2 spaces. Does everybody get that? It's kind of a hard concept to grasp, I know. Even I don't always use this or like utilize this properly, and I had to go back and read it over again and just to remember how to use it properly. So if you don't get it, it's totally understandable. I can go over it again and clarify. Okay. So I'm just gonna change this to say large so we can fully see. So let me say extra large. I have extra large screen. So we can fully see what I'm talking about, right? So we see that I have a very large screen, so it's going to happen very quickly. But when we hit the extra large breakpoint, sorry about that. That's not what I'm thinking. Once we hit the extra large breakpoint, the rule that we put in place that the column will only take up 2 spaces will be in effect. But anything underneath that, the column will be a regular column, which is shared equally among, which would be a full 12, pretty much. Does everybody understand that? Columns and rows are kind of confusing. I mean, they're just really vital to really design properly, though. Everybody else, Ryan, how are you doing? Max, if you're lost, I would prefer you guys let me know, and then we can walk through a project, walk through where you're lost.
Well, actually, I've been trying to do the slideshow thing, but whenever I type the code, it's not working.
Cool. Do you want to share your screen? Do you feel comfortable doing that?
Sure. There. So this is the HTML.
Okay.
Uh, Hold on a sec. Do you see the code?
I don't.
Okay. Now,
Cool. Okay. Okay. So do you see the images at all or no, right?
no, I see the images.
Okay. Can you show me where the images are? So you have 3 different images, right?
Right.
Can you show me the images on the web page, please?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now let's go back to the HTML real quick. Okay. Can we scroll up a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. So remember when we were setting everything up, we needed to add those links to the top of the page in the head and the scripts in the bottom. Right now you're trying to access Bootstrap, but you don't have Bootstrap installed properly. Okay, so I'm gonna send you the link. Okay, copy. And paste. So take what I just said in the chat and place it. You don't have to click on it, just copy and paste it.
Wait.
Actually, you know what? I'll show you where to find it in the documentation instead, just in case. Let's go back to the documentation. You go to open up your browser, and let's click on Getting Started on the left. Scroll down, and you see that CSS.
Yeah.
Click Copy on the left, on the right hand side. Oop, perfect. Now let's go back to the code, and we see where it says Head.
Yeah.
Between the title and the link, press Enter. Yep, and put one in there. Cool. Now let's go back to the documentation.
Documentation.
Perfect. Down. And you see where it says JS?
Yeah.
Click copy, like we did before. And go back to your code. And can you move it over to the left a little bit? The scroll bar? Yeah. All the way to the left. The other way, I'm sorry. No, yeah, that one. All right, now go down. And okay, so do me one favor. Okay, so above the body tag, you see the body tag right there?
Yeah.
paste it right there. Okay. Now let's go back to live server. No, it's okay. You already have it open. Just go back to where you had it.
Okay.
I know. Now go to the HTML that you had rendered. I think it's on home.
Oh,
Okay. Can you scroll down for me? Wait. Oh wait, do you not have, you don't have live server installed?
I do.
Okay, so go back to the HTML and right click on the HTML. No, on the physical, on the on the actual HTML itself, not on the tag. Down,
Oh,
yeah, right there. Just right click anywhere.
okay.
Okay. I don't think you do have a live server installed. Let's try to install it real quick.
I did it. Should be here. Live server.
Let's go back to your HTML. And let's look at it. And you might have a a bug in your code that's preventing you from running it. Can you do me a favor? Can you save this and then send it to me via Zoom or via my email?
Sure.
And I'll look through it personally, all right?
Okay. Wait, what's your email?
It's Josh, Josh.
Okay, hold on. Josh.
IMMOR.
Joshua Immordino.
Yeah, but that's gonna send it to a notifications at github.com. So just type in Josh, IMMOR.
IMMOR.
At gmail.com.
Okay, at gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Files.
Cool.
Okay, send.
Okay. I'm gonna open it up on mine and then I'm gonna share my screen, all right?
All right.
All right.
So stop sharing.
Yes, please. Thank you. Come through. Did everybody else, is everybody else doing okay with where we are right now? Okay. If I could be so brave, do you think you guys could figure out how to I'm gonna coach you guys through it. I'm not gonna show you my code. I will go over it, but I want to see if you guys can do it by yourself. So let's add a row with an extra class named Justified Content Center, like we did before. And in that row, let's place a form that you can find on GitHub. On Bootstrap. All right. Work on that for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and I'll come back and we'll do it together, right? I'll be right back, guys. All right, I'm sorry about that. Okay, Max. I'm gonna open up your file right now. Okay. Hey, Max, are you there? Max?
Did you call my name?
Yeah, okay, so now I'm looking at this. You have a couple of tags that don't match up properly. So if we start at the top, you have two body tags right off the bat. You have a body tag and a body tag, right? Most tags except the image tag and link tag and the A tag, they all need a closing tag. So you created automatically two body tags, a body tag and a body tag. So your HTML is confused on which one to run. So I'm going to get you on the back on the right foot, all right?
All right.
And I'm gonna send back your code. Also, you placed the you place the nav bar
Mhm.
outside of the body tag. So it didn't know how to render that properly. When we have a body tag, it tells the HTML we are going to render images or objects. So we got to be really careful to make sure that we place things in the appropriate place, and then we have the appropriate closing and opening tag.
Right.
Also, inside of your carousel, right?
Mhm.
You use 2 files from your hard drive, right?
Right.
And 1 image from the internet, right?
Yeah.
So when we're using images that are locally stored on a hard drive, the best thing to do is to put them inside of the folder that we're working on, and then access them that way, right? Finally, you have an extra image that's sitting down below. Do you still want that there?
Uh, you know what? Yeah, just in case.
Okay, no problem. So I'm gonna send this back to you. All you need to do is place the images inside of the folder that you're working in, and then redo what you did, which I'm assuming is you right clicked and you said copy relative path, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you paste that path inside of the proper place, right?
Right.
Check that it's working, and I'm gonna send it back to you. Okay, it's working so far on my part for the most part. I'm gonna save it and I'm gonna send it back, okay?
Okay.
Okay, I just sent it back, all right?
All right.
Work on that, and if you need help in the future, just hit me up on Discord, okay?
All right.
Okay. Now I'm gonna share my screen and we're going to create the form together. All right, so how did everybody do? Did everybody build the form? Yes, no, maybe so. No, okay, no problem. All right, I'm gonna share my screen. And we're gonna do it together, okay? So right down here, I have a class of row, right? And whenever I have a class of row, I can justify where I want my content to be, all right? Left, right, center, up, down. And the way that I'm gonna do it right now is I'm gonna justify my content center. Center. All right. Then I'm gonna go into the Bootstrap documentation. I'm gonna click on components. I'm gonna find forms. All right. I have all these forms here. I'm just gonna look at them real quick to see if which one I want. I like the first one. Pretty simple. All right. And I'm gonna type it out for you so everybody can follow along. But feel free to just copy and paste it and to read through the code as I move through the code. Like I said, it's not super important to no problem. No problem, no problem. So most forms in regular HTML, start with a form tag. And after the form, we're going to create another div, right? With a class of form group. I showed you guys this last week. I'm gonna show it to you guys again. It's a little trick to create a div with a class name. All you have to do is press period and then type the class name form group, right? And then hit tab and it creates a div for you automatically, right? Nothing magic about it. All right. What this class form, yeah, no problem. Which part? How far back? It's a little shortcut, no problem. All right, so since we all have downloaded the shortcut plugin, it provides you with this little shortcut, which is when you want to create a div with a class, all you have to do is press a period, then name the class, which is form group in this time, and then press the tab button, right? And then you get a div automatically. I'm pretty sure it works the exact same way with ID. Let's try it out. Let's say form group. And yeah, it gives you a div with the class of ID, the ID of form group. All right. So in Bootstrap, sorry about that. In Bootstrap, a form group is basically let's look at the code and let's look at the example. All right, this form group is a group of objects that all go together. Right, so we have a label, which is email address. We have a input, which is this input right here. And then we have a small, which is basically small text that goes below the input. All of these all correspond to the same form group. When we're building a form in Bootstrap, we build each component of the form in a form group. Does that make sense, everybody? I'm just gonna move to this. Okay, no problem. Just think of the form group as a container for everything inside that has to pertain with the information going in that form, right? So the form group on top all has to do with this form group right here, the top form group, all has to do with the email address label, the email address input, and the email address tip below. So everything that you want grouped together, you want to have in a form group. All right. So let's show you how it's done. I'm going to make a label, which is basically a label for the form, which is a text that goes above the input that you're requesting. So I need a label for email address, because we're going to be requesting somebody's email address. And address. And then I'm going to make an input, which is a text input. And the type of that input will be an email. This is not super important to remember. There are different types. There's text, there's numbers, there are all different types. We usually use text, but there are different types for passwords and emails to help you format things correctly. Don't be too worried about this. There are plenty of resources to help you find out which type to use. Most of the time I use text, but right now we're using email because we're collecting an email. The class that's going to go in here is form control, because that's the class given to us by Bootstrap. And I'm also going to place a placeholder in there. A placeholder is going to be the text that's in there before you type. So the text over here, the placeholder here is enter email. Once I start typing, enter email goes away and my text is there instead. So I'm gonna say email, please. I'm gonna say email. Time. And that's all I'm gonna do for this form group. I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna paste it below. And I'm gonna give this label a label password. And a type of password. What this means is that when we type, it's going to turn into dots instead of text so that nobody can see over our shoulder. And then I'm going to write a password. And then below all of this, we're going to put a button. And I'm going to say submit, or, let's say log in, because that's what we're using. And we're going to give a class of button, BTN. And remember how we had the themes before? So I'm going to say BTN, and then put the theme, which I'm using, which is dark. Okay, I know I went kind of fast for everybody, but there is my there's my form. It's not the prettiest, but it gets the job done. And I'm pretty sure I can align myself right here. Okay. All right. We're kind of low on time, guys. So did everybody follow along? So I'm going to go over what we just did, right? We created a row, which is this whole space. We said that row, inside of that row, we want all the items to be aligned center. Inside of that row, and we create a form. And then every form, I'm just going to change the doesn't matter. Inside the form, we created form groups, right? The form groups contain each container that we need to get information from. So our first form group is our email address, and we can see that in that form group we have two items. One is a label, and one is a input. And the label says email address, and the input is an input where we can enter our email address. All right. And then we have a second form group, which has a label of password and an input where we can input our password, which is protected from anybody seeing it. All right. Finally, we have a button with a class of button and BTN, which stands for button, and then has a theme of button dark, which I stated earlier. Will theme your colors all the same. Does everybody get that? Ryan? Samantha? Paisley? Cool. All right, we only got like 10 more minutes left. I'm not going to try to teach any more just because we went over a lot. I know there's a lot to learn here. But the real important thing is that if you want to build something, these are all the most websites are built off these components, you know. So if you want to build something, all you have to do is go into the Bootstrap documentation, find what you want, and build it. Finally, about Saturday's Twitch, I just want to. I really appreciate you guys showing up. I